Freeze the feed, bury the clock. Whatever video you were queuing up after this one no longer matters, because in the next 90 seconds, I am going to lay one sentence in your hands that ends a 25-year war inside hip-hop, and I need you sitting up before I say it. Here it is. 50 Cent, Curtis Jackson, the same man Jay-Z has spent 2 full decades laughing off in interviews, on records, and in every green room whisper the culture never printed, has just aimed a documentary reel and a stack of receipts straight at the one name nobody in the industry has ever been brave enough to say out loud. Not Diddy. Diddy is already in a jumpsuit. 50 Cent is pointing past Diddy, past the courtroom, past the sentencing, past the hallway tape, and straight at Shawn Carter, Jay-Z. And 50 Cent is not whispering it. 50 Cent is broadcasting it in high definition on his own network with a Season 2 release date already scheduled and a Season 3 already teased. That is the diversion. That is always the diversion. You chase the smoke, you miss the fuse. And here's the part that should tighten the muscles in your chest. Inside the new episodes of that docuseries, according to 3 separate insiders who claim to have watched the rough cut, sits footage that has never touched an editing bay outside 50 Cent's private studio. Not the blurry hallway frame everybody has already seen. Not another recycled Diddy party clip. New voices, new faces, new sit-down interviews with people who were in the rooms, who signed the contracts, who cashed the checks, and who, for the first time, are willing to attach a last name to the man they say was really running the show. And that last name, according to 50 Cent, is Carter. Hold that image in your head because it is going to matter in about 11 minutes. For the next 20-something minutes, I am going to walk you through this story floor by floor. Confirmed layer, claimed layer, conjectured layer. 3 lanes kept apart so you can tell exactly which sentences you can quote in public and which sentences you can only whisper to a friend at a bar. Nobody else on this platform is going to separate those 3 lanes for you. They are going to pour them into a smoothie and hand you the straw. Not here, not tonight. First, the frame. The war between 50 Cent and Jay-Z is not new. It did not start last week. It did not start last year. It started in 1999 when a young rapper from Queens named Curtis Jackson stepped into a booth and cut a track called How to Rob. On that track, 50 Cent called Jay-Z out by name, mocked his posture, and dared the entire industry to admit the Emperor's clothes were tailored but paper thin. Jay-Z fired back on wax. Diddy allegedly locked Mace down to keep him from crossing over to 50's camp. The moguls launched competing vodka brands, and from that moment on, 50 Cent has treated every Grammy statue, every magazine cover, and every polished Jay-Z victory lap as evidence of a game rigged from the top. But 50 Cent is not selling a diss record this time. 50 Cent is selling a case file, and the first page of that file asks the question the industry has spent 20 years refusing to ask out loud. How is it possible that Jay-Z stood 3 feet away from Diddy at every one of those parties, in every one of those photographs, named in the same civil suits, tagged in the same reports, yet somehow was never the one walking into a federal courtroom? That question is old. What is new is 50 Cent now claims to hold the receipts that answer it. Say that sentence out loud. 50 Cent believes Jay-Z is the reason Diddy is behind bars right now. Not because Jay-Z snitched, not because Jay-Z cut a cooperation deal in the traditional sense. 50 Cent's theory is uglier than that, and stranger, and the closer you look at the timeline, harder to laugh off than the mainstream press wants you to think. 50 Cent believes Jay-Z has spent the last 2 years quietly rearranging the pieces on the board, allowing Diddy to become the sacrificial name that satisfies the public's appetite for a hip-hop reckoning, while Jay-Z himself glides above the storm, untouched, uncharged, and unmentioned on a single indictment page. Now sit with the timeline. Rewind to the CNN hallway footage, that surveillance clip, the one that dominated cable news for a solid week. That footage, according to 2 networks that reviewed the chain of custody, sat in a network vault for 8 full years before somebody decided the moment had finally arrived to release it. 8 years. Somebody held it, somebody sat on it, and somebody picked up a phone in a specific week in a specific month and told a producer the time was right. 50 Cent has been asking the only question that actually matters. Who made that call and what did they receive in exchange? Then look at what dropped next. A book surfaced on Amazon under the name of Kim Porter, filled with explosive allegations against Diddy. Her own children publicly denounced it as fabricated. Investigators eventually tied the manuscript back to a ghostwriter named Chris Todd, who claimed he assembled it from a mysterious drive. Then came the federal raids in Miami and Los Angeles. Then came the indictment. Then came the trial. Then came the sentence. And through every single one of those beats, the raid, the arrest, the perp walk, the closing arguments, one name never landed on a charge sheet. One voice never had to sit in a witness box. One billionaire never had to explain a single thing. 50 Cent looks at that timeline and sees choreography. He sees a man in the shadows lining up the dominoes and handing somebody else the finger to knock them down. Feel the ground shift, because this is where the story tilts. According to 3 insiders speaking to 50 Cent's production team, the new season of the documentary does not stop at Diddy's front door. It walks straight into a Tribeca townhouse. The Season 2 footage allegedly connects Jay-Z to the same rooms, the same nights, and the same alleged victims who put Diddy in a federal cell. And that is the part that has the entire industry on edge. That is the part that has publicists working weekends, general counsels drafting demand letters, and one specific Roc Nation boardroom pacing behind glass at 2 in the morning. To understand why this feud burns this hot, you have to understand the ammunition 50 Cent has been carrying in his back pocket for 2 full decades. 50 Cent never bought the myth. 50 Cent never bought the tailored suits, the boardroom photographs, the philanthropic press releases, the carefully staged shots of Jay-Z murmuring in the ear of a sitting president. From the very first bar of How to Rob, 50 Cent has been telling anybody who would listen that Jay-Z is a posture wrapped around a spreadsheet. Not a threat, not a killer, a strategist. A very, very good one, but a strategist who figured out early that in this industry, controlling who wins is more profitable than actually winning. And 50 Cent points to the numbers. He is not shy about it. His largest selling record moved roughly 5 million units. Jay-Z's largest selling record, he insists, moved something closer to 430,000. Domestic marketing dollars can prop up an American story, 50 Cent argues, because America can be bought with enough radio spins and enough magazine covers. But international audiences are harder to spin. And internationally, 50 Cent says, the numbers speak with an accent nobody can buy off. Then there is the Super Bowl story. For 50 Cent, this one is not a footnote. This one is a lit match dropped into a puddle of gasoline. When the NFL was assembling the halftime show that would eventually crown Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Eminem, Mary Blige, and Kendrick Lamar, 50 Cent was reportedly nowhere on the original guest list. And according to the version 50 Cent has told on multiple podcasts, the reason was one man, Jay-Z. Roc Nation had the NFL contract, Roc Nation had the leverage, and Roc Nation, according to 50 Cent, was actively working to keep Curtis Jackson off that Los Angeles field. The performance only happened, 50 Cent insists, because Eminem picked up a telephone, because Eminem told the executives in flat English that he was not stepping onto that stage without 50 Cent stepping on with him. And that, in 50 Cent's telling, is the moment the peace treaty was exposed as a decorative wallpaper. Because a friend does not have to be smuggled into your own hometown's biggest cultural night by a rapper from Detroit. Once you accept the Super Bowl story, the rest of the puzzle starts snapping into place. The album release windows that always seemed to land on top of a 50 Cent drop, the magazine covers that always tilted toward the Roc Nation side of the aisle, the Grammy statues that suddenly began falling on Jay-Z in numbers his early career had never produced. That is where the conversation gets genuinely uncomfortable. Because 50 Cent has been openly connecting Jay-Z's award show dominance to what he calls a vow-sealed alliance. Before the marriage to Beyoncé, Jay-Z had 1 Grammy to his name. Read that number again. 1. after the marriage, after the joint tours, after the joint albums, after the merger of two of the largest cultural brands in modern American music, Jay-Z's Grammy shelf detonated. 17 more, then more still. Then the children began collecting them before they had a single full-length record. To Jay-Z's fans, that is the story of a legendary catalog finally receiving its due. To 50 Cent, that is proof of something else. That is proof, in his phrasing, that the Academy learned to hand out trophies as a way of guaranteeing that the biggest names in black music kept showing up to the ceremony. You do not have to agree with 50 Cent to admit that the timing is peculiar. And in a story where every single timing decision looks peculiar, peculiar begins to look intentional. Now, consider the piece of Jay-Z's history his publicists spend the most hours keeping off the front page. In December of 1999, a nightclub called the Kit Kat in Manhattan became the scene of a stabbing. The victim was a music executive named Lance Rivera. The accused was Shawn Carter. Jay-Z turned himself in at Midtown South, was charged, and eventually pleaded down to a misdemeanor assault, avoiding jail time entirely. A stabbing inside a nightclub ended in probation. Now, compare that to Diddy. Compare it to the men and women serving federal time right now for far less. Compare it to the average defendant walking into a New York courtroom without a Rockaware founder's checkbook waiting behind him. And ask yourself the question 50 Cent has been asking for 20 years. How does a man operate at the absolute top of an industry for 3 straight decades next to a man who is now in a federal cell and somehow never once knows a single thing everybody else in the building appears to know? 50 Cent's answer is simple. He does know. He always knew. And the reason the world is only being told now is that somebody, somewhere, finally decided the shield was worth more than the man it was guarding. And now the witnesses are stepping out of the woodwork. Jaguar Wright, who has spent years insisting that a specific celebrity John Doe named in a specific federal complaint was not going to stay anonymous forever, has publicly said she believes the curtain is finally lifting. Gene Deal has been telling the same story in longer form on radio circuits from coast to coast. Orlando Brown, dismissed for years as an unstable former Disney kid with a broken microphone, is now being replayed on every timeline as his old warnings about Diddy click into focus with a precision the culture never wanted to admit. None of these voices were ever secret. That is the part that stings. All of them were on record. All of them had been screaming into cameras for years. And all of them were laughed out of the conversation because the money was still flowing, the executives were still profiting, and the alleged victims were treated as inconvenient background noise inside a machine that insisted everything was fine. Then came the moment 50 Cent had been quietly waiting for. A twice-elected president admitted, on camera, in the Oval Office, that Sean Combs's legal team had reached out about a pardon. TMZ reported that White House officials were actively debating the request. Sources described the president as, in their own word, vacillating, and 50 Cent, who had already spent weeks warning against the possibility, jumped on his platforms with a message so blunt it did not need punctuation. You do not get a pardon while running your mouth. Get out of here. The relationship between the two men goes back further than most people realize. Diddy was reportedly a guest at that president's 2005 wedding. They were photographed at charity galas together. They orbited the same Manhattan social calendar for the better part of a decade. Then, Diddy went publicly, aggressively anti-Trump, which is exactly the sort of thing that historically does not help a pardon application land at the top of the pile. And yet, and this is the twist, the president has still not said no. He has said he will consult the Department of Justice. He has said Puff asked him. He has said Puff is a good friend. He has said Puff is a good guy. He has said he might stick up for him. That, for the survivors, is the part that hurts the most. That, for 50 Cent, is the confirmation that the game is still the game. Because if wealth, fame, and the correct phone call can flip a 4-year federal sentence into a weekend headline, then everything Diddy did to everyone he did it to becomes, in the coldest possible sense, a rounding error. And this is where the whole thing circles back to the man 50 Cent believes has been standing above it the entire time. Because if Diddy walks, through a pardon, through an appeal, through a technicality, the industry does not go back to normal. It goes back to being run by the same architecture that put him in there in the first place. It goes back to being run by the man standing 3 feet to his left in every photograph, and who somehow, magically, was never standing 3 feet to his left in any of the courtrooms. Now step into the confirmed layer. The Combs appeal has already been filed. His attorneys have argued the conviction should not stand because their client lacked a financial motive for transporting the men in question. The paperwork is already in motion. The next round of briefs is expected within weeks. And behind the scenes, according to 50 Cent, the phone calls are already happening. The favors are already being cashed. The board is already being reset. 50 Cent has said this to anybody willing to listen. He met Diddy once, early in his career, and something inside that encounter felt wrong in a way he could never fully articulate. He describes a man who kept offering to take him shopping, who kept using language that felt more suited to a lover than a label mate, who kept probing to see whether 50 was going to hang around one-on-one. 50 Cent walked out of that meeting knowing he would never sign a deal with him. And in hindsight, he says, everything the public is only now beginning to see was already visible in that single conversation. It was not hidden inside a closet, it was standing in front of him. The same, 50 Cent argues, is true of Jay-Z. It was never hidden. The Grammy anomaly is in the record books. The stabbing case is in the archives. The Roc Nation deals are on public paper. The proximity to Diddy at every relevant event is documented in photograph after photograph after photograph. And still, the industry looked past all of it, because the industry has always been very good at looking past whatever it needs to look past in order to keep the machine humming. So the question the entire culture is now holding is no longer really about Diddy. Diddy has been convicted. Diddy has been sentenced. Diddy is, for the moment, in a cell. The question is what happens when the shield around the second man finally cracks. The question is what happens when the tapes 50 Cent claims to be sitting on actually air. The question is whether Jay-Z is truly the calm architect of every rise and every fall in modern hip-hop, or whether 50 Cent has finally overplayed a 20-year grudge and mistaken coincidence for conspiracy. Because if 50 Cent is right, even partially right, then the throne everybody has spent 2 decades bowing to was never built on artistry. It was built on strategy. It was built on silence. It was built on the willingness of an entire industry to look the other way. And if 50 Cent is right, then Diddy is not the ending of this story. Diddy is the appetizer. The main course is still sitting in a Manhattan office, checking his email, watching his stock portfolio, and waiting for the storm to blow past the way every storm has blown past for 30 straight years. But there is one variable Jay-Z cannot control, and 50 Cent has already promised to exploit it. The internet keeps every receipt. The clips do not vanish. The photographs do not undevelop themselves. Every time a survivor speaks, every time a whistleblower posts, every time a decade-old interview resurfaces with a new caption and a new context, the shield gets a fraction thinner. And the thinner the shield gets, the harder it becomes for even the best publicists on the East Coast to keep the wall standing. 50 Cent knows this. That is why he is not slowing down. That is why the docuseries already has a Season 3 teased before Season 2 finishes rolling out. That is why he keeps posting the clips, the screenshots, the courtroom sketches, the smug memes at 3 in the morning. He is not trying to win a rap beef anymore. He is trying to rewrite, permanently the way the culture remembers the last 30 years of its own history. And whether you love him, hate him, or roll your eyes at him, you cannot deny he is currently the only major figure willing to say, out loud, on camera, with his real name attached, the sentence everyone else has been too scared to whisper. That Diddy was not the ceiling, that Diddy was the distraction, that the man the world should actually be looking at is the one who has spent 3 decades convincing everyone he was above the fray. Now consider the calendar, because the calendar is not an accident. Season 2 of the docuseries lands inside the same 90-day window as Grammy nominations. Roc Nation has 3 artists in the awards conversation this cycle. A high-profile documentary alleging a link between the founder of Roc Nation and a federal defendant dropping inside Grammy season is not a scheduling coincidence. That is a filing strategy. 50 Cent releases documentaries the way other men release tax returns. Every date chosen, every gap measured, every clock a weapon. Then there is the missing photograph. Where is Beyoncé in this frame? She is not in it, and that absence is the loudest data point of the week. For 25 years, whenever a Jay-Z legal or reputational story crested, the family apparatus produced a Beyoncé image within 72 hours. A handhold, a red carpet clip, a tour hug, a loft portrait. Count them yourself. The pattern is documented behavior. This time, the story broke on a Tuesday. It is now Sunday. No handhold, no hug, no post. That silence is not accidental. That silence is a communication strategy, and the strategy is telling you something the press release will not officially say for another 6 months. Watch the paper, watch the quiet, watch the clock. Watch for a sudden, generously worded settlement offer leaked to a friendly outlet. If that arrives, the offer itself is not the story. The leak is the story. A leak means somebody blinked. Watch for a 50 Cent post carrying an emoji nobody expects and a caption that reads like nonsense. Screenshot it. Date it. It will read like prophecy in about 6 weeks. Watch the award season positioning. If one of those 3 Roc Nation artists quietly exits the Grammy conversation before nominations lock, that is not a creative decision. That is a risk department clearing the runway. Here's the lesson, because this story is bigger than one family and bigger than one billionaire. Every empire that comes apart in America misidentifies the threat. The threat is never the rival at the microphone. The threat is never the reporter in the front row. The threat is the quiet signature at the bottom of the page, the filing nobody live-streamed, the deadline nobody circled. Jay-Z spent 25 years winning the loud wars, the stage, the charts, the boardroom, the press cycle he could either spin or bury. Nobody survives the loud wars that long without learning every trick inside them. But this war is not loud. This war is a docket number, a broadcast date, and a phone call from a twice-elected president. And you cannot outmaneuver a deadline. You cannot auction a catalog and call it armor. You cannot buy the building and call the deed a defense. You cannot spend a fortune making a question expensive and then act shocked when somebody finally pays the price to ask it in the correct room. Jay-Z has survived beefs, bankruptcies, investigations, and headlines that would have flattened a lesser operator 10 times over. But the one opponent Jay-Z has never been able to settle with is arithmetic. 2 decades of parties, 1 federal cellmate, 1 relentless Queens rapper, 1 documentary, 1 pardon debate, 1 missing photograph. Some fractures do not polish over. Here is the prediction, time-stamped for the archive. Before this Grammy season closes, one of 3 things is going to happen. Either 50 Cent releases new footage that permanently attaches Jay-Z's name to at least one of the federal complaints already on file, or the Trump administration formally rejects the Combs pardon, and 50 Cent uses that rejection as a launch pad into Season 3, or the Shield holds one more season and Jay-Z steps into the legacy phase his empire has been staging since 2022. There is no fourth option. 50 Cent, the man Jay-Z spent 2 decades telling us was a punchline, may have just aimed the camera that forces the answer into daylight. So drop your verdict in the comments. Tell us which side of this you land on. Tell us which name you think falls next when the next tape drops. Was Diddy betrayed by the man standing 3 feet to his left in every photograph? Or is 50 Cent running the longest, coldest, most calculated diss campaign in the history of the culture? If you have been with this channel since the early videos, welcome back to the room where the documents get read out loud. If you are new, hit subscribe, ring the bell, and stay locked in, because in this story, the credits never actually roll. They just cut to the next scene. See you in the next one.